Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to Growing Orchids with Roger, and today we're going to be repotting a Cattleya, which means it's got to come out of the holey clay pot, which the roots are attached to in places, and be set up in a different environment where hopefully it will do better. Mainly because it's just not doing well at the moment. My grow room is too cold. So that gives you a clue as to what we might be up to. Anyway, let's get the camera down off of the big tripod, onto the little tripod, and make a start. Okay, there will be some cutting involved, so I'll chuck my scissors in some rubbing alcohol as a form of sterilisation. It sort of works. There's various solutions you can use. You can use a bleach solution, you can set fire to it. There's all sorts of things. There's tablets you can get that make a sterilising solution. Even the sort of stuff you use for babies' equipment. But whatever you use, it is a good idea to sterilise your cutting tools before you cut into the tissue of a plant, at which point you could spread infections from previous work that you've done, shall we say. Right, now this is a Cattleya. It's actually a Rhyncattleyanthie. You can read it for yourself. These words get longer and longer and become less and less pronounceable. But it's not one I've had a long time, but I've had it long enough for the label to badly fade in the light. It's in a clay pot, which is for aeration purposes. Cattleya roots like to have plenty of air around them, so it's in large chunky bark and a holey clay pot, which in a reasonable environment would be absolutely brilliant. But my grow room is just too cold, so we're going to get it out of here. So it's wired in at the moment to hold it nice and steady, so we'll get the wire sorted out as the first job. It should just lift off. And then hopefully we can, I'm going to snip it in the middle so that it'll pull out in two directions. It'll just make life easier. And it's too short a piece to be any good for anything else, so we'll just cut it in the middle. And then it should come out both ways. Right, that's that out of the way. Now, in theory, this might just lift out, but there are some roots poking through the holes, and some of those have attached. I'm just gently loosening them, or attempting to. See, that one's broken, so that one's lost. That one's come undone. Unfortunately, that one's come out of one hole and gone back in another. Oh, we've still managed to get it out. Now, I'm going to attempt to lift it out in one go. And if it doesn't come out, we'll... Not too bad. Not too bad at all. I'm just gonna, this is in large pieces of bark. If any of these pieces of bark are stuck to the roots, they can stay there, because basically it's probably going to go back in the same mix, so leaving a few bits there don't matter. This is a bark that I can't get again. Let's just empty the pot. We won't be needing that anymore. Coffee. Essential for repotting coffee. Right, so what have we got here with this plant? As I said, I'll ease some of this off so that it'll get a chance to attach again. But I don't want to go mad, but what I do want to do is take off any damaged or broken roots, simply because they're not going to do the plant any good in the pot. It's quite a lot of dead roots on the older part of the plant. So I'm just snipping those off basically. Things like this, they look papery, and if you tug at them they're just like bits of string. They're of no use, so we can just trim those off. It's not absolutely essential, but I just think it tidies the plant up and leaves room in the pot for what will hopefully be lots of nice new shiny roots. Would be good, wouldn't it? Now these are, anybody who needs to know, these are actually bonsai pruning scissors. They're stainless steel, they're very sharp, and because they're stainless steel, if you have the right tools, you can actually sharpen them, hone them back up. Now let's look at the plant. This is the latest growth here. It attempted to put a sheath up, so it looked like it was going to flower. That sheath failed. But that's the latest growth at the front lead of the plant. Behind it is another one, but over the back of the plant is also a new growth. I'm just going to take that sheath off. I always take sheaths off simply because Cattleyas are scale magnets. If you've got any sign of scale anywhere near your plants, they will find your Cattleyas. They will get on them, and they hide inside those sheaths and niggle away at the plant and damage the tissue when you can't even see them. So if you take away their hidey places, at least you get to see them and can deal with them. I don't believe there are any on this plant, no. This lead here, the latest one, has an eye there that is probably the next place it's going to grow from. This lead back here is relatively weak. The back end of the plant has no roots on it and has one very desiccated bulb, and it will stop it going in the pot nicely, so it's coming off. So we will take the rhizome back a bit. It's actually a bit of a struggle for my scissors. That was quite a large cut. Now the next bulb, although it's shriveled, it's loose, so that can come off too. That takes us to this one, which has got two quite desiccated leaves. Leaves on this one are desiccated. Those leaves aren't too bad. Those leaves are okay. Those leaves are okay, and hopefully these will be. So that's where we are. We have some roots that are viable. We don't have any active growing roots at the moment. So all we have is some viable roots, so the plant will be able to hydrate. So that's all I'm going to do to the plant. I hope this lead is going to survive. It seems very loose. It's as though it's almost rotted at the base, but it's not loose, so it's hanging on there. This one is okay and should produce another one relatively soon. That's where the latest set of roots have come from, which is typical. Now Cattleya types, as there's various types of Cattleyas, Lalias and others, Brassivolas, they all come into the sort of Cattleya alliance. They all have similar care, but the different genera within the Cattleya alliance often need different care, so you can't assume they all need the same thing. Now some of them are very, very highlight orchids, and without that really highlight they're not going to bloom. Some of them don't like such strong light, but they all need pretty good light, so they're up the higher end of the light spectrum. In the natural environment, the species are often found where they're in direct sun for some of the day. As far as you're concerned, looking after them in the home, they would benefit from some early morning sun or some late afternoon evening sun. They probably won't benefit from midday sun, they will frazzle through the glass. If you're growing them in the home, it's obviously through glass. If you live in a mild atmosphere, they'll go outside in the summer if you want to, but the problem with putting them outside in the summer is the pests will find them. And then you might well bring those in when the mild weather finishes and you've got to bring the plant back indoors. I don't put my orchids outside. I mean, the majority of my orchids, apart from this one at the moment, live in the grow room, and apart from the cymbidiums that go outside for the summer, that's where they stay. So anyway, this was in a clay pot, it's now going to go in a plastic pot. I will go and get the pot and then I'll show you the setup that this plant's going to have, because it's not going back in the grow room, it's staying in the house. Low humidity in the house, not good enough. We will deal with that in part 2. I'll be back. Okay, let's get this plant set up. I'm actually going to wire it in, even though it's going in a plastic pot, just simply because Cattleyas like to be steady, they like to be firm. They're often found in the wild growing on trunks of trees with nothing. A lot of orchids you tend to find growing on trees in moss or with their roots in amongst the roots of other plants, so they're sort of with other things, whereas a lot of Cattleyas are just on bare bark. So, you know. Now, humidity for Cattleyas, so I've got my wire through the holes, that gives it a grounding. The bark that I've just taken off out of the pot is going straight back in the bottom of the pot. Now, this Cattleya hasn't got lots of roots, so it would need a shallow pot for now. If the roots start going mad and get down into the bottom of the pot, this large bark will be ideal because it's got an air cone in the pot, so there's plenty of air around the base of the plant. So when I water it for now, when there are no roots in the bottom of the pot won't stay wet. It'll dry incredibly quickly. So that's crocking, basically, but if the roots get down into it at a later time, it's not the end of the world and they'll be fine. In fact, that bark is very suitable. Now, what I don't want with this plant is for it to be sitting high in the pot. So we've got to see how it's going to sit, and I'm going to add some medium bark. Now, this medium bark has got smaller bark in with it. This plant is dehydrated. Yeah, it's been drying too quickly. So I need to stop that happening, and the way to stop that happening is to use a smaller media with less air gaps, or smaller air gaps, that will hold moisture a bit longer. Not long. The last thing a Cattleya wants is to stay wet. That they really don't like. Now I'm just trying to position this in such a way that I can get the wire to hold it down nice and firm. Where are my new growths? I've got one, I don't want the new growths too near the edge of the pot, so I think that wire can come through there and grab hold of that bit, and then we just twist them together, get it over the top of the plant, and then initially just twist it together. That's the start. And now I need another tool. I'll be back. I needed my heavy duty pliers. So having put a twist in the wire, I'm now going to cut it. I'll show you why. Once you've cut it, you've got the twist in a position where you can get hold of it with your pliers. And then you can twist it. As you twist it, it becomes tighter. You can hold the plant where you want it, twist away until it binds and it's got the plant in a position where it can't really wobble around. How do you know you've got it? Let go and give the plant a wiggle, and it should be firm and tight, which it is. Now what we do is get rid of that excess wire, because we don't want that. So we can just take that off now, and then the bit that's sticking up, just push it down so that it doesn't show. Now the wire hardly shows at all, apart from the bit that goes across the top. Now what I'm going to do is merely top this up, and I'm going to top this up higher than it was previously, because I need this plant to hydrate, because it's not at the moment, it's dry. So when I water this, I want it to stay wet for long enough for the roots to soak in some moisture. But at the moment, when I watered this plant, probably within a couple of hours it was bone dry again. The roots weren't getting a chance to hydrate. So now, unlike some other people, I don't always do the same as other people. When I repot a plant in this type of media, bark, everything is dry. The pot's dry, the plant's dry, and the media is dry. Now some people like to wet their media first and give it a bit of a soak so that it's sort of ready to go. I do my soaking after I've put the plant in the pot. The reason is, if the media is wet, and worse still if the plant is wet as well, when you do this, it won't get down in all the little crevices and find all the gaps in the roots, because it'll stick. It'll stick to itself, it'll stick to the roots, and it won't do the job properly. So I use dry media, and that's the reason why. Right, so that's the initial job done. That now gets a watering, it gets a thorough watering. That means pouring a lot of water through it many, many times until it is very wet. And that water will have a bit of seaweed extract in it, which helps promote root growth, so it says. And some say it de-stresses the plant following repotting and gets it to settle down quicker, some say. I've got no backup for that at all. So that's part 2, and then part 3 is going to be quite different to anything else. I'll be back. Right, here we go then. This Cattleya, along with most Cattleyas, are not high humidity orchids, but they don't like dry air, and they especially don't like warm dry air. So I would say 50 to 60% if your temperatures are below 21, 22 degrees is more than enough. Once you head up to about 25 degrees, you really ought to be getting up towards 75%. And as I've said, they like good light. Some like brighter light than others. But go steady, they can burn. Yeah, so you can overdo it. Watering with these, you water them and you wait for them to be either almost dry with the thinner rooted ones. If they've got big fleshy roots, you wait till they're dry and then you soak them again. They like a wet dry cycle. The quicker that is, the better. A wet dry cycle that takes 3 weeks is not a lot of good at all, because they're staying wet for 2.5 weeks, aren't they? That's not the idea. A wet dry cycle that takes a few days is ideal. A week, sort of okay. Anyway, this is a dehydrated plant and it needs warmth. So what are we doing then? Tip that. We're making a lot of noise, aren't we? People love these boingy noises. I can think of 2 people that will say, couldn't you have done that quietly? Well, you've got a volume control on your unit, same as I have. So what we've done is we've put some lacquer beads in the base of this glass container, and now we're going to put some RO water in there. Why RO water? Because it will delay the onset of algae, because it's pure. this leca doesn't wick very well, so there is a lot of water in there. The leca is effectively floating, which is good. That's what I wanted. That's about the amount I wanted. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put our pot in the tray and put the whole thing in here. I haven't watered it yet, so I will have to get it out again. So the plant itself is not standing in water, but it should get a lot more humidity from the water evaporating off the leca beads. This is now going to go up on the bathroom windowsill. This is a south facing window, gets a lot of sun when we get some sun, but it's frosted glass, so it's diffused bright light. And in addition to that, there is a blind inside which will be angled so that it doesn't get the direct sun straight on it. So the reason it's going in the bathroom, the light, yes, that's good. And for a fair bit of the year it will be quite a bit better than it is in the grow room. So it should encourage growth from now. But the other thing, it's warmer. It's in the house. And my house has trouble warming up downstairs because a lot of the heat goes straight up the staircase into the upstairs rooms. And the doors are shut apart from the bathroom and my bedroom. So the bathroom actually gets quite warm. So it will have extra heat, extra light, extra humidity. And if that doesn't get it growing, then it's going in the bin, like most of my other Cattleyas have had to do because they haven't survived the cold of winter in my new place. So first winter they went downhill. Because I didn't have the temperatures through the growing season, they didn't recover very well. They went into a second cold winter and that finished a lot of them off. So I can safely say, apart from this one and my Laelia anceps, I now don't grow Cattleyas. I haven't got the temperatures. So this is the last survivor basically. This is it. This is the one. And I won't be getting any more. It's not worth it. I've got the wrong environment now compared to what I used to have. I used to do quite well. Anyway, so that's a repot with a Cattleya, a chat about wet-dry cycle. When they're actively growing, they'll need some feed. They don't like incredibly strong feed, but when they're actively growing, regular feed is good. And when they're not growing at all, I wouldn't give them much food, if any, because they won't be able to use it. So watch out for periods of no growth. Many Cattleyas have a rest period. Sometimes it's after their bulbs finish growing and they just have a rest and then they bloom. Some of them have a rest after they've bloomed prior to the new growth starting. You have to get to know the plant, yeah, because they do vary quite a lot. And with the hybrids, they can be all over the place. They can do everything all at once. So there we go. That's that one set up. I'll have to take it out again now. It's got to have a good watering. And then I'll set it up in the bathroom and we'll keep our eye on it and see how it does. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.